Hey everyone, Donna here, and I already made an Ask an American video on summer day camp in the US, so if you haven't seen that yet, I'll link to it down below. But today I'm going to be talking about sleepaway camp, because as much as I enjoyed day camp, it was sleepaway camp that just really made a huge impression on me. Even now, even today, so many years later, when I think back to my time at sleepaway camp, even now, I often get choked up and teary-eyed and emotional just thinking about those memorable, wonderful times. So if I start to cry in this video, that's why. I went to summer day camp from about age 7 to age 11, and then I went to sleepaway camp when I was 12, 13, and 14. And actually, my very first summer at sleepaway camp, I went for 6 weeks. So my parents dropped me off there toward the beginning of the summer, and then picked me back up toward the end of the summer. And then the next 2 years, 13 and 14, I went for 3 weeks each summer. In addition to some of the activities that I mentioned in the first video, such as swimming, archery, arts and crafts, at the sleepaway camp, we also did horseback riding, which was actually kind of scary at the beginning. My parents and I didn't pick the camp because I especially wanted to go horseback riding. We picked the camp because it looked like a really good sleepaway camp that just also happened to have horseback riding. And at first, it was really scary. I was really scared to be on that massive animal, and I didn't really know what I was doing at all. But after the 3 summers, I had learned to horseback ride and really learned to love it as well. But when I think back to my time at sleepaway camp, it's not really so much the activities that come right into my mind like they do with day camp, but rather the strong emotional bonds that I formed with the other girls in my cabin. You know, it was a very intense age, early teens that we were there at camp, and there were just a lot of emotions flying around, and I would say intense is just the word to describe it. We were there living together for 3 or 6 weeks, and we always said that 1 week at sleepaway camp was like getting to know someone over a whole year out in the real world. And so, yeah, it was just a very emotional, intense bonding time. But okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Let me take a step back and explain a little bit about sleepaway camp itself. Once again, we were separated into groups by age, this time into groups of 10. Each group of 10 campers would share a cabin with 2 counselors. So inside of each cabin, you had 12 people, 6 bunk beds, each with a top and a bottom bunk, so 12 beds, 1 sink, 1 shower, 1 toilet, 1 ceiling fan, and 2 mirrors. Thank goodness we had 2. They were never enough. This was a camp for girls and boys, but the boys slept way over on the other side of the camp. We did all of the activities together, horseback riding together, eating all the meals together, doing dances and activities in the evening together, but not sleeping in the same cabins together or anywhere near each other. There was no mingling between the cabins. Even if a guy counselor would come onto the girls' side, there would be shrieking and just mass panic. Boy on the girls' side, boy on the girls' side. Kids came from all around the state to go to this camp, and also from sometimes different parts of the country. And so that first day, drop-off day, was super exciting. If you were a returning camper, parents would arrive throughout the day, drop the kids off, and you're running around looking for, is your friend from last year here? Is this friend here? Is that friend there? And you're so excited to see each other again. You missed them so much. There's a lot of screaming and jumping up and down and hugging. But, if this was your first time at the sleepaway camp, that first day could be really hard because all the other campers are super excited to see each other and you don't know anyone. So your parents bring you and then they leave. And at least for me, I just remember that first day was really hard. My parents left and I had just this lump in my throat. And I was sitting there just like, please don't cry. Please don't cry. I don't want to be the one that cries, but I really wanted to cry. I was pretty homesick. But then, you go to dinner, and then in the evening, there's activities. And then, that first night sleeping there was hard. I was homesick. But then you wake up in the morning and boom, you hit the ground running. There's activities all day long, and you pretty much just don't stop running until the end of the session. So the homesickness, for me at least, really didn't last all that long. But like I mentioned at the beginning, those bonds that I formed with my friends at camp were so emotionally charged and strong that actually once I left camp at the end of the summer or the end of the session, I did have then a kind of weeks-long, not homesickness, but camp sickness. So a typical day for me at Sleepaway Camp looked like this. Woke up and got dressed and then headed off to breakfast. But before breakfast, we had the flag raising ceremony, and then we had a special morning thought. So usually a counselor, but sometimes also a camper, would get up in front of everyone and tell a little inspirational or motivational story, really short story, or a special saying or quote that meant something to them. Just something to start the day off right. Then it was breakfast. We had a large mess hall where everyone ate together, but still in their cabin groups. We sat at these long yellow picnic style tables, and each day we had a chores wheel, and each day one person from our cabin was responsible for going into the mess hall and setting the table, getting the breakfast, and then we'd eat, and after breakfast, that same person had to bring all of the dirty plates and dishes back to the kitchen and clean the table. And maybe you're thinking, oh, well, that doesn't sound like a nice job. Well, it wasn't great, but if you were the meals person for that day, that meant that you didn't have to help clean the cabin that day. After breakfast, it was time to clean the cabin, unless you were the person who did the meals, and then you didn't have to. But everyone else on the chores wheel had something to do. Clean the shower, clean the toilet, sweep the sand out of the cabin, which it just seemed like you would sweep the sand out and magically it would reappear. There was always sand in the cabin. Then it was time for activities, but unlike with day camp, you wouldn't go off and do all of your activities together as a cabin. You do the activities with boys and girls and campers of all ages together in each activity. In the afternoon after lunch, we had about an hour of siesta. And since this was summer camp in Florida, we really appreciated this. It was just so hot in the afternoon. And most people, I said we had one ceiling fan up there, but most people would bring one or two huge box fans with them. So we would sit there in the cabin with all the fans on high, just like, keep us cool. During siesta is also when we got the letters and packages from home delivered to us. And oh man, if you were waiting for a letter or package from home, the guys would drive up with the mail and you'd be like, did I get anything? Did I get anything? And if you didn't get anything, it was a little sad and disappointing. But on the days that you did get something, it was very exciting. Then after a few more activities in the afternoon, it was time for dinner and then time to head back to the cabin to get ready for the evening activity. Now, as I said, we were 12 girls in the cabin, including the counselors, 12 girls with one shower and 2 mirrors. So getting ready for the evening activity was a bit of a cram fest, but we helped each other out, doing each other's hair, doing each other's makeup, picking out our clothes. The evening activity was different every night. Some nights it was a themed dance, like the hippie dance, dress up like a hippie, or the red, white, and blue dance for the 4th of July. Or sometimes it was a talent show. There were hay rides some nights. You would get into a wagon filled with hay and you'd be pulled around the camp in the dark until you finally ended up at a campfire, and you'd sit around the campfire roasting marshmallows, maybe making s'mores, telling ghost stories. Then around 9 o'clock, it was time to head back to the cabins, but not time to go to bed quite yet. After we brushed our teeth, got into our pajamas, got into our beds, We did another quiet activity together, more bonding time. We went around the room and each person had to share maybe their warm, fuzzy, and cold, prickly from the day. So what was something that they really liked about that day and something that they didn't like so much about that day? Or we would have to answer a hypothetical question, like if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would that food be and why? Or we needed to share some sort of meaningful quote to us or tell who we maybe had a crush on at camp or something like that. More bonding. Just a warning, I don't think I'm going to be able to get through this last part without crying. I was just reading what I wrote down that I wanted to say and I'm already crying. Okay, so here I go. And then before you knew it, you had made it to the last day of camp. And like I said in the day camp video, there were also awards given, an award ceremony at Sleepaway camp, but because there's so much more bonding. The awards given were they meant so much more. Counselors would get up on stage and they would laugh and they would cry, telling stories about campers who had made an impact on them that summer. And we would have one last dinner where we would all get really dressed up. And then after dinner, we would sing songs together and we would put our arms around each other, and together we would sing Leaving on a Jet Plane and cry. It was a good time. It was a good time. So I have tried to do my best to impart on you in, 10 or 15 minutes everything that Sleepaway Camp meant to me. And I hope that I did a good job. I hope that I've at least imparted something about Sleepaway Camp to you. So my question for you is, all right, let's get deep today. What is the time in your life when you look back on it now, it was such a special time to you that when you look back on it, you are overcome with this immense feeling of joy at the memory, but also at the same time, this kind of tinge of sadness too. Joy and happiness that you have that memory, but I guess sadness that, it's a memory, it's in the past. Yeah, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this very special video. I hope I didn't scare you off with the tears there. Please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe for more videos. And if you enjoyed this video, please show some love with the like button. And also, for more photos and other short video clips, you can check me out over here on my Twitter and my Facebook page. Until next time, auf Wiedersehen.